Matthew. Okay, let's take a look at your images. First, I would like you to have put your photos into separate folders, one for each section, because it's a little difficult for me to tell which are which, and you haven't labeled them, so I don't know. But let's take a look. So this one with shutter speed of 1/1000th of a second is definitely freezing or stopping motion. It is a bit dark, and that is because for some reason you have the exposure bias set to -2, which means that the camera will automatically underexpose by 2 stops relative to whatever the light meter says is correct. So you want to change that back to 0. Okay. Okay, that said, it looks as if you stopped motion very nicely here. I'm not sure which image it's supposed to go with, but perhaps this one. So let's take a look here. That's at 1/4 of a second. And it shows motion beautifully. This also is at a -2, which actually brings the highlights into good detail. It looks as if it was a high contrast situation with bright highlights and dark shadows. But I'm not sure about that. But it does look as if you've shown the motion very, very nicely here. Okay. This one looks as if it is a panning shot. So it looks as if maybe you were rotating around. So nice job there, 1/4 of a second again. And the hand is nice and sharp, and the background has a nice blur to it. So showing motion, I guess, at 1/25th of a second. So yeah, showing some motion. This one, maybe you were trying for panning. It's hard to do it looking down on your subject. That's, excuse me, what it looks as if you were trying to do there, though. I can see some motion in the background. The dog, however, is also in motion. So you might want to try again. And panning usually works best if the moving subject is going across your field of vision, or it can be up and down, which is a little harder, but across would probably work better, be easier for you. Okay, so these two really interesting images. It's really hard to see that the turtle was in motion, you know, but the images work nicely, especially the slow one here. And so I assume that you have captured some motion here of the turtle, and it has a really nice dreamy kind of ghostly effect. I'm not sure if you wanted the horizon line to be non-horizontal. It gives it a certain tension. It gives the image a certain tension because it's not straight. And we generally expect the horizon to be horizontal. So it works rather well. Sorry, go back here. This one could be a little lighter. It's hard to tell again that the turtle was moving. And that can be a challenge, finding a subject that is obviously in motion both when you show motion with a slow shutter speed and freeze motion with the faster shutter speed. Okay, so things that are in the air, birds, planes, someone jumping, throw something in the air, a ball, those kinds of things that are very obviously in motion because they don't just kind of hover there all the time. Those subjects work well for motion studies. Okay. And finally, also showing motion, definitely. I'm going to guess that this might have been a panning shot also, since this one car in the middle here, well, entering from the left, is sharp relative to everything else. So we'll say that one is panning, right? So nice job overall. To some technical things that that could be addressed. Okay. Also, again, labeling would help, and reset your exposure bias so that you're not underexposing. Okay, thanks, Matthew. Let's take a look at your work. So this first folder says blurred objects, which is true, they are, and you've done a beautiful job on them, on both of them. So 15 seconds here and 10 seconds here, both showing motion of a car, I think, behind this one, behind the still subject, which works really nicely. And then in this one, two different vehicles moving in the parking lot. You might try a different situation, and have one image maybe in the parking lot and the other not. But that said, they both work beautifully at showing motion. However, the assignment is to have in this section one image showing motion, as you've done, and the other freezing motion, which you have not done there. So you could keep one of these and shoot another where you've frozen motion, or do another set showing, of the same subject in motion with one image freezing the motion and the other showing motion. Okay. Which is what you did in this set, and that works well. So the first image here with a shutter speed of 1/3200th of a second freezes the motion very nicely. Nice capturing of the ball just about to enter the dog's mouth, so that's great. And then this one here at a 20th of a second, beautiful motion. Yeah, I love what happens to the ear also. So very nice job on this set. In technical terms, you did what you were supposed to do here. Panning, you did pan in each of them, but they're essentially the same image. A car passing through and you've panned. So that's great for one, but I'd like to see a different subject for the other. So I would keep this one. I like the sense of motion. It feels as if the pickup truck is kind of going around at a curve, and I think that is effective. And this one is, works, but it's just not quite as dynamic an image, and also it doesn't show the motion as much. So if you want to redo that would be great. I'd be delighted to see other images. Okay, all right. Thank you, Bradley. Let's look at your work here. So the first set here says set 1 blur, and this one shows motion beautifully. This kind of fan-like effect is really lovely. So a 1/6 of a second at f/29. The image itself is a little too bright, and I see that you have the exposure bias set at a +1 1/3 stops. So I don't know if you intended that, but in this case, it has overexposed the image. So when you have the exposure bias set there, it will automatically overexpose by 1 1/3 stops every time, relative to what the light meter says is correct. So I would set it back to 0. Also, for some reason, your flash went off, and I can't imagine it really had much of an effect here because it's, in daylight, but you might want to turn that off as well. Okay. And the second image here at 1/100th of a second, presumably has stopped or frozen the motion. Unfortunately, we can't tell that the tree was in motion, so it just looks kind of as if it was just there. And that can be a challenge with motion images. Finding a subject that you can tell is in motion when you show motion with a slow shutter speed and when you stop motion with a fast shutter speed. So things in midair tend to work pretty well, or something that is very obviously in motion, like a bicycle, for instance, somebody riding a bicycle. Okay. Set to motion. And this set has the same issue, I would say, that the flag is, you can see that it's moving with the slightly slower shutter speed. You could have used actually an even slower shutter speed than a 40th of a second. But at 1/400th of a second, we can't tell that the flag was in motion. It's just there, right? In addition, the exposure bias is way up, and I don't know why, or if you wanted it that way, but especially in this image, the image is overexposed, so you might want to check that out again. Okay. And panning, nice. This one especially works really beautifully, and it's hard to capture birds, I think, panning. They can be erratic. You don't know which way they're going to go necessarily. So this one especially, I think, works very nicely. This was a nice try. I think the shutter speed is just way too fast. So 1/160th of a second is just too fast for panning anything but something moving really quickly, like an airplane, probably. So I would try this one or a similar one again with a much slower shutter speed. Okay. And again, check your exposure bias. So if you want to resubmit images, I'd be delighted to see them. Okay. Thank you, Taylor. Vanessa, let's take a look at your images. So this says motion and freeze. And nicely captured. Both of them are nicely captured images. This one is showing motion at 1/40th of a second. This one also shows motion at 1/40th of a second. It looks as if you kind of panned a bit, but both of them are showing motion. So what I wanted you to do was shoot the same thing twice. Or actually, I guess this is your second set. Yeah, sorry. So 2 different subjects, fine, but with one image showing motion as a blur and the other image freezing motion. So you're welcome to redo probably this one. This one, the first one, this one works well for showing motion. Okay. Panning. So they're just really, really, really dark. So it's really difficult to tell that you were panning or what you were doing. The ISO is at 640. You could certainly double, treble that, so that you could use a slower shutter speed, a wider aperture as well to let more light in. Okay. I see you're in the manual mode, so I don't know if the light meter was telling you that this is correct. Maybe, you might want to put it into the shutter priority mode so you can choose the shutter speed, and then the camera will automatically figure out the equivalent exposures and set the appropriate aperture for you. Okay. So, I mean, it looks as if you did get some panning there, in fact, nicely, but it's really hard to tell. Okay. And very nice job on this set. Really nicely done. So we'll look at them together in in this manner and then individually. So 1/40th of a second, showing the motion of the waterfall beautifully, these streaks, as if somebody took the smudge tool in Photoshop. And then here at 1/400th of a second, beautifully, beautifully stopped motion. Beautiful drops of water. You can see there's a little motion, but really frozen very, very beautifully. So good job on this set. And if you want to redo the stop motion for this set and possibly the panning, that's up to you, of course. You don't have to redo them, but and this is for everyone. You're always welcome, except of course for the last assignment, which is due at the end of the term. But you're welcome to redo assignments, and of course I will record the higher grade. Okay? All right, thank you, Vanessa. Christine Luong, let's take a look at your images. It says here blurred background. I think maybe, I don't know if you misread the assignment or what's going on here, but both of these images were made with the same shutter speed. And the assignment is to make one image showing motion with a slow shutter speed and then freezing motion in the second frame with a fast shutter speed. So here, the person isn't moving, it's true. But the assignment is to photograph someone who is moving, or something that is moving, and stop or freeze that motion with the use of the fast shutter speed. Okay. Okay, these ones look really interesting, actually. So a 1/15th of a second and a 1/4 of a second. So about a 2-stop difference. And this one definitely shows motion, nicely in the glass. And even though a 1/15th of a second is relatively slow, it has frozen the motion of the water here. So nice job on this set. They are a little dark, so you're in the manual mode, I see. So I don't know what your light meter was telling you, if it said that you were spot on or if you were not. But you might want to set the camera's mode to shutter priority for this assignment because it deals with shutter speeds. And if you use that priority mode, you can set the shutter speed, and then the camera will automatically figure out your equivalent exposures for you and set the appropriate aperture. Okay, and stopping motion. So you did use 2 different shutter speeds here, which is great. A 1/60th of a second here, and then 1/4 or a 1/4 of a second in this case. And you certainly are showing motion here, almost as if she's wobbling a bit. So that's fine as far as that goes. But you are missing the panning images. So you have three sets of images here. This set, then the water set, which works well, and then the balancing or exercise set. But what you also need is the panning set, where you move the camera across the plane and you follow the moving subject. So if you want to do that and resubmit, that's great. I'll be delighted to see the images. Do reread the assignment before you do it, okay? All right. Thank you, Christine.